Sioned, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
How did you get into the fenestration industry?
Wow, there's a story behind that, you know.
I was hoping there would be.
So I started many moons ago with a company that most, and if not all people will know from the industry, called Rayhow. And that's where my journey started when I was very young, at only 16 years of age. So that's where my journey started. But although not straight into the fenestration window and door side of the business, that came later. But yeah, that's where it started when I was 16. And I applied for an apprenticeship. Those good old things.
Yes, yeah.
Which, you know, for me, I was very grateful. I knew that I oddly just didn't, the going to university side of things wasn't for me. I didn't feel like I wanted to do that. Maybe probably one regret that I've got in life now. But yeah, so I started with Rayhow, got the opportunity to go on their apprenticeship scheme and started off at their factory, which one in the UK they had obviously two in North Wales. One was up in Amlwch in Anglesey, and the other one is the Blaenau Ffestiniog, which, you know, most people within the industry with Rayhow know that that's where they were making their windows profile. And so yeah, I started my journey there. Did on the apprenticeship scheme, which I wish, well, I'm sure that companies are doing, but I wish I'd see a lot more of that these days. But yeah, it started there, and then my job was to basically go around every part of the factory to learn and understand the roles.
Right, yeah.
So my job was to basically to support the business. So if anyone was on holiday or if anyone was off sick, then I would come in and they wouldn't suffer from any downtime or loss or anything like
Wow.
that. So I got to learn every aspect of manufacturing and processing of the materials, which at the time they were making edge band, they were making furniture edge bands, they were making fridge gaskets and all that, and automotive parts. So yeah, I learned so much then. I ended up basically working in the production side of it, and then I moved. A job came up to go to their head office at Rayhouse head office in Ross-on-Wye, and I went there and I was in their marketing team as the marketing assistant, and grew and then ended up in their marketing comms, and then very much then getting involved with the window side of it when, you know, the good old Glass X. I think I mentioned that to you some earlier on, but I remember the Glass X exhibitions and supporting Rayhow then, and obviously I left the industry and worked with other companies in construction, and then obviously came back to Al UK in 2016. And it was really interesting coming back, actually, because I felt like, you know, coming back to old faces and new faces, but you know, the industry that I knew very much of when I was at Rayhow. And it was joyful coming back, but also I was coming back not on the PVC side, I was coming back on the aluminium side. And my goodness, I've enjoyed that journey very much when I was at Al UK. You know, it was very much at that period of time where the aluminium was, you know, increasing in its popularity and its demand and so forth. And I was able to work with Al UK. And then, obviously, I've left Al UK and went to work White Sales, which is obviously in roofing, and then now set up my own company. Yes.
Very exciting.
Yes. Mainly, obviously, you know, my connections are still within the fenestration industry, but I do want to do more within construction, because construction and building materials is ultimately what I do and where my experience has come from. But yeah, so that's how many years ago, many years ago, Richard. Not that I'm going to divulge how old I am to you.
Well, I just want to work it out because
21, yeah, 21.
I was going to say a few years after your apprenticeship there. So You've seen the industry through all those years. How has it changed?
Gosh, that's a really interesting question.
You've seen it from
How?
because you've seen production now, but you've also seen the marketing, which is quite often, you know, marketing and
Yeah,
comms is something that you're at the front. You've got to be looking ahead and seeing in the change. And you're definitely someone. Every role you've had, I can imagine you were bringing in new ideas. You're very creative. All of that goes
yeah.
into it.
It's really interesting. I would say, when I look back at, how the industry was when I was at Rayhow in those early days, it was, my goodness, a very different landscape to what it is today. The industry is still just that whole family run industry, dysfunctional at times, probably. But it's a very family felt industry and it's very well connected and so forth. But it's interesting to see how it's also starting to diversify much better in terms of its, you know, much more women into the industry, which is great to see, seeing that shift. But also, it's interesting to see, because I would say that one from a marketing perspective and marketing comms, and I would say that generally, not just from the fenestration side, but from construction, I would say that, and building materials, I think it's, it's traditional, it's quite slow to change and adapt to new ideas and technologies, and obviously, over the last X amount of years, that's obviously had to change, and you know, but I think it's interesting to see that the industry's getting better at that. I would say, I still think there's a long way to go, but I think the desire to embrace it is there. I would say, but it's still extremely traditional.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Is it? Do you think, from their point of view, though, if it's not broke, don't fix it? Why do we need to look at, a window's a window? It's still four side. I could argue it's
Yeah,
not,
well,
but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now we're getting into around. See, that's how sad we are. But that kind of concept, they apply that to marketing, and if they do marketing at all, because sometimes reputation, as you know, they would have been marketing to get that reputation at some point, and whether it was
Yeah,
knocking door to door, trust, classic for
yeah,
the double glazing, it happened. You
yeah.
can't really.
I was going to say, from a marketing perspective, yes, there's improvements. I mean, goodness me, when I think of my days when I was working for Lafarge Plasterboard, which is now known as Cineat, my role was to go round. My role was trade marketing manager. My role was to go round builders merchants and um, support them with, you know, growing the sales of Lafarge plasterboard with them and their customers. So it was like a win-win situation, and working with the marketing people to actually drive campaigns and promotions and awareness about not looking at commodity product, which was standard plasterboard, but looking at the added value, which was definitely changing because of building regulations at the time. But it was interesting even then, and and what the comparisons are still today, probably, that I'd have to go and speak to marketing if they even had anybody, or if it was someone that I went to see at marketing, it was someone that was, oh, we've given it to Joe, or we've given it to
Because he had a
Sue.
computer, or she had a computer.
Yeah,
Yeah, she bought
they
one.
do a bit of web stuff,
Yeah.
they can do it, and that was it, or if they had anybody, which, was quite difficult to actually get that momentum going. But if I look at that today, there's, in the fenestration industry, my goodness, yes, there's some really clever, good quality marketeers in the industry, and also within the businesses themselves. For an SME sized business, investing in people, they've got to be the right people, and generally they tend to go in the sales function or the operational function first before they even think that they want to invest in marketing. But it's great to see and great to admire those people that actually do, um, invest in the marketing function. I think sometimes where some SME companies get a little bit frustrated is that they don't then have the ability for the strategic side of the marketing. And then you've got a young marketing exec coming in where they're extremely passionate and able to do it, but they need the support, you know? But the fact that they've got someone in the first place is joyful.
Yeah.
You know, it's a definite must tick in the box of a function that any business should have. Um, you know, obviously money is important in terms of what you can and what you can't afford, but it's an absolute fundamental function for any SME business, I would say.
So on that note, you mentioned you're now doing your own thing. Part
Yes.
of what you're doing there is sort of, it mentioned connecting the two, marketing
Yes.
and sales, which is something that I think you're doing very well.
Well, thank you. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And I've been really lucky over the years to work with some really exceptionally good companies and brands, but also leaders that saw the value in marketing and allowed me
That's the important bit.
the freedom, and the trust is massive to actually, you know, go in the direction that I'm suggesting to go down and look at new options and new ways and new services and new creative ideas. And I think, like I was saying, for me, setting out on my own has been something that I've always wanted to do for a long time. I just never had the confidence to do it. And, the timing has come now for me to do it. And I'm enjoying it. I'm actually enjoying working with companies and clients and friends in their businesses now to link that, because they do have a marketing function, but they don't have someone that can come and support them to give the strategic direction for marketing. Because ultimately it drives sales. That's what my job is about, driving sales to the business through the activities that they do, from brand awareness, lead generation. It's driving sales. And where I feel is that, for some SME companies, they can't they can't afford someone at my level, in terms of, like I said, it usually, when they do have the money to spend, it'll go on in the sales function, or it'll be someone in the operational function, or wherever, where I can come along and bridge that gap and support the businesses. And I absolutely love that. I love seeing success. I love obviously sharing success, and you know, but it's and I've been enjoying the journey. Obviously, I'm very early days in going on my own, but I'm looking forward to the journey. The companies that I'm working with now, I can see the value already, and hopefully, fingers crossed, as I sit here, that they do too. But yeah, it's bridging the gap between, you know, having someone in the business that actually can do all the great marketing things that need to be done in terms of socials and websites and campaigns, actually then supporting from a strategic point of view to help direct in terms of which way to go.
And all of that then, so you mentioned it completely right, the strategy and the plan, it needs to be there. It can change, it can evolve,
Yes.
and that's part of the job as well. But where did that come from in you then? Was that experience and you built it up through all your job roles?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I'm I'm quite creative in my way. That's where and I like to also think out of the box slightly differently. But I would say you're right. It's been through experience. I've been in the game many, many years now. I started off like I said, at 16, and not long after that went into the marketing function. But I had some great people around me. I had a wonderful lady who taught me a lot. She was my mentor in the early days. And even today, I still do things that she taught me. And I obviously pass that on. It's like passing on the baton, you know what I mean? But yeah, it takes time. And then as you develop your career, then obviously you're able to have more ability to strategically look at different things. And strategy is my that's my skill. I absolutely love thinking strategically and how to bring in sales and brand. I'm all for brand as well, making sure that it's brand and sales revenue at the end of the day.
So, on the strategy, I'm just thinking for anyone listening to this podcast, they're thinking about marketing. Everyone thinks about marketing. They don't really understand it. Marketeers, can you explain? Because with a strategy, sometimes you've got to try these things, and I think some people out there are just frightened to even try because
Yeah.
appreciate you'll come up with that strategy. There will be a budget in there, and you've got to. I'm trying to find the words to sort of explain it properly, but it's almost like you're gambling a little bit. But
Yeah.
if you get it, you're going to hit it big, and that kind of is and it causes people to lose a bit of faith in the department because they
Yeah.
can't see the return on investment straight away,
Yeah.
and it
Massive.
doesn't always work. So how have you got through that over the years?
It's an interesting one when you say that. Yes, it's about taking, you've got to have a plan at the end of the day. Your strategy is one thing, but you've got to have a really good plan to execute it after. And what I have always learned is to make sure that any marketing that you do is, it's integrated. You can't just do one thing after another. You can't do things in isolation. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
all comes together. But yeah, it is taking a chance, but it's also because sometimes these things can be extremely costly as well. And you talk about ROI or ROMI, you know, that's all about, you know, the lead generation, the quality of the leads that you can get, but you can't qualify everything that you do. And I think that over time, I'm old school as well. I'm traditional as well in terms of my background for marketing, and I think sometimes there's also a bit of people being scared around the dark art of
Mm.
digital these days, I would
Yes.
say.
SEO.
Oh my goodness me. I'm trying to think of something else that SEO stands for. Seriously expensive.
Oh yeah. Just need the what could
Oh,
the
because it can be.
operation?
Yeah, it can be. And I think sometimes people get a little bit scared of that and, you know, understanding it. And I think as Google in terms of analytics and algorithms and users and all that, and of course the website and SEO is important. I'm not saying it's not, but I think people get a little bit despondent when they can't actually link what they're spending in that area to what actually brings into the business, and that's where it gets a little bit clunky.
Mm.
That's where people like you saying that they think, I'm not gonna do it because it's like I can't see what I'm getting out of it. All I would say is it's about really understanding your customers and just going back to that a little bit and understanding where do your leads come from in the first place? How are you getting these leads? Where's your business coming from? Yes, the website is always going to be very important, and SEO is always an element of that, and digital and social. But it's really remembering, and I always try and say this, that your marketing toolbox is big, and there's a variety of different tools that you can use to help generate business, for your company and increase sales revenue. But I'm also one for making sure that, you know, I'm a stickler for, understanding the sales process and stickler for lead generation and where is it coming from? Where does mainly of your business come from? Thinking about that. But also as a marketeer is sometimes businesses can get a bit delusional, delusional, that's the wrong word to use. A little bit frustrated, I would say, with
Yeah.
some of the marketing functioners because they can't see the
Yes.
return. But is the sales follow up process good enough? Because as a marketeer, you can chuck as many leads, quality leads, to a sales funnel function. And if it's not followed up correctly, then you're wasting money.
Mm.
You've got to have tight sales follow up processes. And that's where I can help business as well with what I'm doing is just making sure and doing a bit of a sense check and, a health check to make sure that that's working correctly, and if it isn't, how do you improve that? How can you improve the customer touch points, the customer experience, the customer follow-up process, and just understanding the leads generation pool? Where do we pull them from, and how much of the monies then should be spent on certain elements of the marketing tactics, if you want to say.
Is that something you see a lot in companies? Because you sort of, I'm picturing it, even from a business owner point of view, when you're doing a lot, it's easy to drop the ball, and you sort of think if a lead comes in and you don't have that many, there's not really an excuse, but you do get bogged down with things. But when you've got a similar thing where you've got a team, that is their sole job, and the ball's being dropped, it could be systems and processes and things like that. But do you see that? Is that...
Yeah.
And is the disconnect from the marketing to the sales because they don't talk and things like that?
I think that's a fair point, actually. I have it, come across that in my career, and I see different reasons and different issues and different things to change when I come across with some businesses. But, you've sales and marketing have always, haven't they, clashed? One blames the other, but you've got to work collaboratively, because ultimately the sales, if you want to go old school, I'm probably not going to be very liked when I say it, but a sales function is part of your marketing toolbox, isn't it? It's one of the tactics that you use to promote your business and to sell and get business and revenue. But yeah, there is sometimes a bit of a dysfunction between the two, and it is frustrating as a marketer, because I've seen it myself, where you do bring in quality leads and they're not picked up. It's like painful. It's so painful. So yes,
As someone that's been working in marketing for some time,
donkeys.
how have you seen it change over the years, for better or worse?
Well, I think we can all say the change has been the digital transformation. I mean, that's like massive, that's...
Podcasts?
Yeah, definitely. But I think there's probably a double-edged sword for a lot of companies when they think of the digital transformation and how digital has changed. And it's changing again, in terms of the socials, the content creators, the influencers now are becoming much more, the trend for, in terms of Instagram, and, having these people promote and your products and services, which I probably see there's more trend for that as well. AI, that's a term that's also been talked about quite, and how you embrace that. I think, for some businesses, AI is probably, a step further than maybe what they just want to get some foundations in their marketing, first of all, in terms of digital. But it comes across as maybe it's a dark art. We talked about how Google Analytics is changing and how you need to put paid advertising as opposed to organic advertising. And not organic advertising, just organic. But I think the digital transformation is the biggest piece. And I think companies get scared of that in terms of what it is that I need to do on our digital. And it's a combination of, like you say, podcast, video content. I think the trend for digital PR, we've talked about that, you and I think that's a really interesting move. I think people just want to see more video content by people, because it's more about trust. It's I trust this person, that they're telling me this is correct about this service or product that you're telling me about. And I think people are a bit more dubious about just written content these days. I think there's definitely a stronger balance between the two. And I think, again, going back to, the trend for e-shots and how they're delivered and the content that it's been delivered, and getting that combination about video content as well, and rather than just sort of like written 500 pages of content that no one's going to read. It's about getting the creativity, and the more it goes to video and more it goes on to that digital transformation, creator content, the influencers, AI, it's all going to be about can I trust this person that's telling me the right information? So yeah, I think that's probably a good and a not so good. Well, no, it's not so good. It's just getting.
No, no, no. I can see that, because I would say the not so good side is that I think a lot of companies become overwhelmed because they
Yes.
just don't know where to start. So,
Yes.
bringing it, I mean, we work with companies and we see it as clear as day. This is what you need to do. But I think when they're trying to do so many things and people mention video and they mention podcasts, it just, how does that fit in? And I think that's where the likes of you come in to actually explain that and tell them. And this is how, you use that agency for that, your marketing
Yeah.
agency for that. And that's how you sort of piece it together. But having
Yeah.
someone like you there to sort of,
Guide and cement it all together. That's, I've said it before, I'm a great believer of making sure that you're working with experts in their field to help you. And it doesn't have to be costly. That's why I believe in, like, for instance, what you do, you're the expert of what you create. That's not my skill set, but by working with you and other types of people and companies and agencies, for instance, like a PR agency or a creative agency, you get the best rather than having to sort of, spread yourself too thinly with one person or one type of company that think they can do it all for you. I think it's working with the experts that can help you. And that's where I come in. I come in to be able to support the business to say, right, okay, right, this is what I think you should be doing, and this is how we can do it effectively, and actually then KPIing it by saying, right, these are the leads that you're getting. This is what it's converted. So yeah, I think it's a balance.
yeah, I would argue, yeah, we're starting to see that as well. Collaboration and putting egos aside, thinking that if you can do everything, actually, no, they can do it better than us. And we'd rather them do it than us try and get bogged down with stuff that we know what we're good at. This is where we're going to stick
Yeah.
to. And
I
it makes
think
a
I
massive
find
difference.
that as well. I found that over the years where, when I've worked for companies, with companies and driving their marketing and their marketing strategy plans, and, it's, I always see the companies that I work with in terms of agencies and suppliers as an extension of your team, and everyone has a part to play. And it might be that you do have 2 or 3 different agencies because they have skill sets, but everyone needs to remember that there's enough work, there's
Yeah,
enough demand
100%.
for everybody, and I think collaboratively, if you work together and you are the extension of that marketing function, then the business succeeds. It's a win-win situation. Sales grow, the business grows, and you invest more, and you do that as a team.
I know you just mentioned digital there. Social media, how does that, what should people be doing with that?
Yeah, social media and paid advertising is an interesting one for me at the moment, and I think that's why, as I said earlier, it's about making sure that you're using the right market, in your toolbox, is making sure that you're using the right types of tactics. Because if you think about, if you're a company and you're considering spending quite a lot of money on paid advertising, it's a cost. And when you're an SME business as a fabricator or an installer in our industry, you've got much more access to different types of tools in your toolbox. If you think about an online company, if demand, for instance, we talk about the market being tougher, and if demand reduces, then obviously you probably find more advertisers, more paid advertising going into the ether, and that would then ultimately start driving prices up in terms of the cost for sales. So if you're an online company, then you're quite limited to the tools that you use. So the cost per lead gets higher when you're in this type of market where it's tougher and there's more advertisers coming in. Obviously, then you've got the difference between building it organically, and that's the beauty of your toolbox. It's driving people to your website using all the wonderful tools that you have in your toolbox. direct mail, for instance. I love direct mail. I'm still a traditionalist in terms of print because I believe that, it stays on your kitchen table a lot longer than you swiping as an email or swiping in terms of scrolling on your website, on your Google, wherever. But I think it's a balance between that. So digitally is consider how much money that you are spending between paid as opposed to driving it organically. And remember that you, as someone, has the ability to open up your toolbox and use multiple of different tactics compared to someone that's driving it online, because they don't have any other options, where you have multiple.
So where do you see the challenges in our industry and what are the trends right now?
Oh, I think the challenges companies face from their marketing in our industry right now, I think because the market is so tougher, and probably going to get a bit tougher again, I would say. I think because businesses are probably more focused in terms of like the sales and driving that and operationally, I think maybe sometimes, we talked earlier about not understanding marketing, that marketing gets left behind as a function, as a strategically. And I think the challenge at the moment, I think, is not having that focused. We mentioned it about having the exec in the business, but expecting that exec who's probably a young person that's new, that's come into they're not at the level for strategic direction, is they don't get the best out of the marketing. And I think that's probably a challenge, is to make sure that you don't forget about it. Strategic marketing, and remember, marketing is not just the colouring in department, it's more than that. It's about really thinking about how to drive sales to your business, how to make sure that you're getting the right leads into your business and you're qualifying them and you're turning them around quickly, the customer experience, as well as the services and the product offering that you have. These are all the elements of marketing, not just the comms part of it. I think that's a challenge. I think, as I mentioned earlier, have a plan. I think some companies right now, if the market is tougher, make sure you've got a plan. Make sure you've got a marketing plan. Remember, the marketing function is needy. You've got to have someone managing it. You've got to feed it with content. It has to have content. It needs to know the focus and the direction. So wherever you do, put a plan in place. Put a plan in for 3 months. Put a plan in for 6. Wherever you do, put it in for 12. Just make sure you get a plan. Keep the focus and drive for that. Because otherwise, in an industry when it starts getting very tougher, it's quite easy to be, I'll go and do this. I'll do a bit of that. Oh, I'm not seeing this, and I'll go and do that. Get a plan. Keep focused. Stick to it. Drive it. Review it. Monitor it. If it's not working, change it. So that's what I would say is key to the challenges that we face at the moment. And trends, we mentioned it earlier about the digital side of the social and the Instagrams and the influencers, the creative contenters, is that what they call it these days? Okay, let's just say influencers. But, that's a definite trend that's going at quite a pace, even I today as a consumer, I'm caught up in it.
Yeah.
This lady that I trust, that I think that she's used this product, she looks so much younger. I'm going to get that cream today. That dress looks gorgeous. Yes, she looks lovely and she's normal. So, yes, I'm going to purchase that. I think there's probably a good place for that in our industry. It doesn't have to be some big celeb, I think. Because also the value of the products that you would be using are quite high. So you can get some good influencers who I think would be quite happy to do that for you.
Have a window or door.
Yes. On us.
All of it.
Yes, please. So, yeah, I think those are the key things that are the trend at the moment. But challenges, there's big challenges. But yeah, keep focused, get a plan, make sure you follow every lead. The other thing for me is right now is be brave, be creative. You're only, as I said to you, you're only as good as your brief. Make sure your brief is good, wherever agency that you're working with, or get the help from someone to help you with that. Is be creative. Yeah, don't be afraid in terms of, there's too many Me Too's, I feel, in our industry at the moment. So I think get creative, challenge the idea, challenge of what you're trying to achieve, because I do think that it's, you get an element that you can get a bit boring, Get creative. That's what I would say in this industry right now as well with your marketing. You've got to stand out. So that doesn't mean spending a fortune of cash. Just be clever with what you're doing and get creative, for sure.
Traditional fenestration industry, is there an argument to say one of the reasons why they haven't really adopted, there's probably quite a few companies out there that haven't got into marketing because they don't know where to start, and they're scared about wasting money, and they don't know. It's like anything. If you've got someone to guide you through it, it's always you've got their experience to guide you. And you said it earlier. You said you go through it. They've got you to bring it all together, and that I think is powerful, because I think genuinely, in my opinion, I think that's where a lot of companies get stuck. They don't know where to start, so they just don't bother, or they bury their head, and then that's when they start getting into trouble, because sales will drop off. And I think some of the fenestration industry, companies in the fenestration industry have they blew up because, they could have been making, back in the white gold days, and they were just printing money to the point where, oh no, we need to think about this now. And there's a lot of, even installation companies, you could argue, just they've gone from reputation, and then they build up into these big beasts, and then you've got to fuel that beast.
Do you know, it's really key that you say that, because we mentioned earlier how tough the market is now, and it is tough. But gone are the days where, you open up the door and you scoop up all these orders and leads that word of mouth got businesses, and, I don't have to do marketing. It's just it's all coming through the door. It's all coming through the door. But it all starts from somewhere. You've marketed at some point. But when the market is as tough as it is today, yes, you've got to start thinking, how do I play this game differently? And yes, you're right. It's how do I start with marketing? And this is where I can come in and just, spend a couple of days with that business just to understand what they do today and how they can. Here's some directions of what I would suggest to you that you could do, or just spend half an hour with me if you want. I can talk to you about how the key things. It's not rocket science. This is what I was trying to say to you before. I'm a traditionalist in terms of marketing, a marketeer. I'm long in the tooth. I know what I know, and I know what works and what doesn't work. And I think what's also probably adding to that, where do I start? What's my SEO like? What's my social paid and all this stuff? Stop panicking about that. Like, as I'm saying, that you've got a massive toolbox of marketing tools that you can use. And don't think it's a dark art. It's not. You just need some guidance and support, from which I can do that for businesses. Get you on the right path, help you to develop the function itself. Today it looks like this, i.e. no one in the function. Or, you've then got a marketing assistant or a digital exec or whatever that may be, leading up to a marketing manager, up to a marketing director. So, yes, it's very much a pick and mix, as I would say. But yeah.
Do you think, I sort of see it as newer companies coming into the market now have to be better at marketing? They've got to take more risk, even if they've got no budget, and do that thing out of necessity, because they are up against brands, existing companies that have been doing it a long time. They've got a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Which would you argue that's the case, or is it? And then in theory, that then gets the existing brands to start marketing more because they're trying to compete, and it sort of goes in that way. But ultimately, that's a little bit where the fresher marketing comes from. Newer companies coming in and trying to build.
Yeah, I would say that, but I would just say that from a marketing, you've got the strategic side, yeah, which means how you actually want to look at your services and product, what products you're going to have, and then obviously the rolls out from the communication side. Get creative, yeah. That's how you stand out.
Yeah,
And you
exactly
don't
right.
and you don't have to spend an absolute fortune. You've just got to really know what it is that you're trying to achieve. And this is where I would also say is, you know, make sure you're clear with a brief. You're only as good as your brief. Yeah, what comes out the other side is making sure that you're very clear what it is that you're trying to achieve. It's also working with creative people. Yeah, get creative and don't be frightened. I tell you the one thing I would say from as a marketing, which type of marketing I love. I absolutely love the supermarket marketing. I just, it's
Wow.
just one thing that I can't. I just love the movements in it. And Aldi, you take Aldi as an example, as the challenger brand. When it started. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine just being part of that marketing team and having someone say, yeah, okay, go for it, and to be so ballsy with their marketing? It's ultimately clever and so engaging. It's so engaging and it's clever and it's creative and it's being different. You know, you don't have to be different just, wildly, stupidly, but just clever about it. And I just love the supermarket wars with the marketing. It's just something that I sit back and enjoy.
I've even seen, on X now. It's not Twitter anymore, is it? So like they'll fight back with each other, and
Oh,
I know what you mean. They're getting into it, but they're embracing it. They're not
yeah,
saying, no one's saying to them, no, you can't respond like that.
no.
It's about having a laugh and just, don't take
And
life too
don't
seriously.
exactly. Obviously, when you've got a brand, you've got a voice and you've got a personality, and there's a professionalism as well, and it's making sure that you don't cross the lines about what it is that you are and what you're not. And I think that's extremely important as well, is making sure that you protect that. That's an exceptionally important role for a marketer, for a business. Is it's your job to protect that brand, and you're the custodian of it. Obviously, everybody has a part to play with that in the
Yeah,
business, of course. But ultimately, it sits with you as a function to protect that. Because everybody wants to, oh yeah, we'll do this. Oh, we'll go off and do this, and like, whoa, 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 whoa. And nowadays, it's probably more worse than anything. You can't
yeah.
do anything. You've got to be so careful these days of anything that you do. But yeah, I just be creative. Just be, and don't be frightened. As long as you're true and you're not crossing the line, just go for it. What's the worst thing that happens? It's the chip paper tomorrow and everyone's moved on. But and you know what? There's no such thing as bad PR, is there really? That's what they say.
That's quite a journey. Time for the questions.
Mm-hmm.
In all of that journey, is there a low point that sticks out for you?
I've Yes, I would say in my whole career, I would say I've had low point where, not that I'm going to mention the company, but wasn't within fenestration, that's for sure. But yeah, I wasn't in a great place, to be honest with you, and I I kind of questioned whether or not I was, capable of doing what I do. I was the people that I was working with weren't necessarily nice people to a degree, and I think that I needed to. I was actually questioning myself: can I do this job? Can I do marketing? Am I good at it? You know. So that's not a great place to be, where you
No.
lose your confidence, and it takes it takes great people around you to build that back up for you, um, which took a bit of time, I'd say.
That's really interesting because knowing you, I mean, from the moment I met you, you've been this presence. You're so confident. So to imagine you being in that place,
Oh,
it's really hard.
because I thought to myself, what else do I know? I love what I do, and having individuals. This is obviously when I was not as experienced in the truth as I am today, and old as I am. This is it. It's crushing sometimes in your confidence, But having the right people around me was exceptional. And do you know what was really interesting for me? Just on that note, is when I launched the business, your confidence then it creeps in. I had such an amazing response from people that was so kind, really kind, and I'm genuinely overwhelmed with that. And from the bottom of my heart, I was literally at evenings, I was with my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, this person said this about, it's just the confidence you needed. And that's where I'm riding that right now. And I feel probably as confident today than I've ever been, if I'm honest. But yeah.
Well, that's good. So, well, the next question, I don't know if that counts then, because is there a high point that sticks out for you?
I'll tell you a high point for me, right? Just as as a one of a great experience from a marketing perspective. I've probably got two, right? Um, the the recent one was when I went to Fit Show in 2017, right? And people are like, I mean, it's a bit cliche, but it's not, right? That was the best exhibition I have ever done in my life, right? Because every marketeer that does an exhibition always craps their pants to think that is anyone going to come to this stand. And you see so many stands, everyone standing there, twiddling their thumbs, and there's everyone walking by but not coming to their booth. And the morning of that show, as soon as the doors opened to the time that the last minute of the show shutting, it was just overwhelming. And I remember some of the guys saying to me, Sioned, if someone comes and talks to me about bifold now, I don't think I've got the voice left to actually talk, because they're just non-stop. It was an amazing experience. And for me, as a marketing person, experiencing that was just wonderful. It was an amazing, amazing thing. And the other thing was the highlight for me, if I'm allowed to, if you
Oh, go
hear
on then.
me.
Go
Go
on then.
on.
Just for you.
Just for me, thank you. Was when I worked at Lafarge, which is obviously now Sioned. And as a marketer, if you're able to launch a brand, in your career, then you're lucky anyway. And I was able to launch a commercial brand, and it was the G-Tech brand, and they've still got it today, which is great. That, because I was young, I was only in my, probably late 20s, early 30s, I would say at that point. And I was able to launch this commercial brand. and delivering it to the internal team. And I can't remember what hotel we did it. And I remember having to deliver this brand. And because everybody in that room had to be an ambassador for this brand, they had to feel as passionate about this brand that, you know, I'm working with the team behind closed doors at the time, coming up with the brand name and what it means and why it should be this, and delivering that also to the team and having them being ambassadors and the response to that. Yeah, the highlight was obviously great from externally, but the highlight was the internal response that we had. I was just overwhelmed. You know, I was so proud that day. It was amazing. It's an experience, you know, if you're lucky to have these things when you're in the marketing function, it's great.
Brilliant. Well, last question. I think I know you're going to choose this. If you had to spend, oh, actually, I don't. If you had to spend 2 weeks on a desert island with someone from the fenestration industry, who would it be?
Oof. Well, the right answer is clearly my husband. But there's one person who I would really love to spend time with on a desert island from the fenestration industry is, I would probably say, my good friend Sarah Coop.
Ah.
I've known her for so many years, and she's an extremely funny woman, very clever, very good at what she does. And I would love to sit on a beach with her and have a good old chat and moan and a good old bitch.
Thank you very much for your time today. You're welcome back anytime, so you can keep us up to date with your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hopefully my journey hasn't been so boring to listen to.
I think they've definitely learned something about marketing.
Well, give me a call if you need to.
Thank you.